Pipe Network presents.
On this episode of season 4, let's talk.
So, and then now with podcasting, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. He loves to be a podcaster, but then what I see him is like, okay, mom, maybe we could try this. And he's upping the ante. Like he's just upping how much he wants.
And you're giving suggestions that I sometimes will not take.
Yeah. And he's very confident too. He's for somebody to have autism that could really, in the world that we live in, that could really like bring him down. He does he does not let it bring him down. And
because I made a determination to change during freshman year. I mean, I made that determination. If I wasn't, then I don't know. I would something.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show, and I'm your host Rajiv Doreswamy, and this show aims to help reach out to those who are currently struggling in life and to remind you that life is indeed beautiful when you're inspired to make it your own. Before we get into this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to whichever platform you are using. And if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at The Rajiv Show. Hey folks, welcome back to The Rajiv Show, and we're going to go international again. And this time, I have an amazing guest, my friend Sam Mitchell. Pal, how you doing? Sam and Gina Mitchell, how are you guys doing?
I'm all right, man. What about you?
Doing good. First question before we get into the first question, could you give a little bit of background to my listeners about you?
Yeah, sure. So my background is I am Sam Mitchell. I am from Indiana. I do run a podcast called Autism Rocks and Rolls. I started through my school's media club, and I've done it since then.
Pretty cool. And Gina, how are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having us on your show. We really appreciate it. But yeah, I'm Gina Mitchell. I'm mom to Sam Mitchell. And yeah, so Sam was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. Sam is now 18 and doing some really cool things with podcasting and media. He's college bound, so that's really exciting. But yeah, Sam runs his own podcast, Autism Rocks and Rolls. I created it. He's the host. He pretty much employs me, and I just do whatever he tells me to do with his business and with his podcast.
I finally get to boss her around a little bit.
He must be around now.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
It's really awesome. It's really it's the roles have kind of reversed. But
not in life. You'll still whoop me.
I will still whoop you. Don't ever forget that.
I won't.
So, but he very, very proud of him. He is still in high school, but he will be going to college and really, really taken off with it. He's kind of turned something that a lot of time the world sees as a negative. A lot of times autism is kind of painted in a really negative way, which I hope we can talk about that later, just so we can talk about our feelings with autism. But anyway, he's doing really well, and like I said, it could have been a negative thing, but he's really turned what a lot of people consider a mental illness into something really positive.
Yeah, flipped it.
Kind of flipped it. And I'm a teacher, so I teach here in the United States. I teach 8th grade language arts, so that keeps me busy, and Sam's podcast keeps me busy, and it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, awesome. Autism part, we're gonna unbox that later on. But first, this is a question for both you guys. If you guys, of course, you mentioned Sam is still in high school, and Yeah, I'm a fresh graduate, college graduate already. If Sam, I'll first ask Sam and then I'll ask Gina. If you and I were
Sure.
classmates in high school, who were you in high school?
Okay. Sure, I didn't understand the question, but I get it now. So, what am I like? Well, I'm quiet in school, but outgoing outside of school.
Hmm.
I am kind-hearted, I like to say.
Hmm.
I do like helping people, and I just enjoy writing, I guess.
Oh, writing. That's interesting. Do you have some
Yeah.
extra notes, novels, and ideas, or how? What's your definition of writing?
Well, I write short stories. I am in a creative writing class right now
Hmm.
where I do take creative writing. As a matter of fact, I could, if you want me to, go get my creative writing notebook and read an excerpt from what I've written.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, you can go do that, and
I'll be right back.
yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of what he said while he gets his notebook, everything that Sam said is very true. He's very kind-hearted. He's a very social person, which is really awesome because lots of people on the autism spectrum sometimes aren't.
Hmm.
They have a really hard time socializing, and he does sometimes. He's still, sometimes reading social cues and understanding how conversations go.
Hmm.
We still have to explain that to him sometimes, but I mean, for the most part, but what I really like in school with Sam, I've seen him in school a lot because I actually teach in the same district that he goes to school in.
Hmm.
So what I saw as Sam kind of grew up is he did struggle. He did
Hmm.
struggle socially and making friends when he was younger and all the way into middle school. But I saw and when he was in high school, I saw kind of a transition to where he's still a very, very nice person, but he just got to the point where he was like, well, I am me.
Hmm.
I am Sam Mitchell. I just happen to have autism. And he just, we had some bullying issues and things like that, but he just got to the point where, and I think still he's like, whatever. I mean, you can make fun of me and say whatever you want, but he knows who he is. He
Hmm.
knows, and he just doesn't let that bother him. So
All right.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
I found my notebook, so
go ahead.
I'll read you this one. This is what Ryan probably had to do is what would happen if all rodents in the world became vampires.
Hmm.
So here we go. A little threat here. If rodents became the darkness of all small creatures, then we would all not be existing, and blood would be flowing in vampire as well as prey. The godfather of all vampires, Dracula, would come to life and suck all living men and steal all living women. Rodents would be bigger than ever, where mouse traps would not work or throwing them away would not be satisfying. The dead would raise and living would fall. None would be safe, even zombies or the vampires. Everyone who knew us or we knew would be gone, and life would be death, and death would be life. Not even Thanos could snap them to die, and wipe us into dust. Things would be near us all the time, and lots of caskets will be 6 feet under the ground with no sound or vision.
Wow, that.
Ada.
No, I got one.
Oh, okay. He's got more.
Sign would. I can't risk giving my hand. Some would be disease, and we could never smell again except our own blood dripping down our cheeks.
Oh my! How come I've not ever read this?
I showed you once. You just don't remember.
That's really good.
It's pretty cool.
There you go.
I like the cameo of Thanos there though. That's that I didn't expect.
That is amazing. Yeah, I do remember reading it now, but hearing him read it out loud, being an English teacher, I'm like, whoa, maybe you need to come and teach my class.
Right, sure.
I love the energy. I love the energy.
Remind me of the question because I'm like completely obsessed with his writing now. So repeat the question for me.
If you and I were classmates in high school, who were you in high school? Are you the competitive? Are you the introvert, the extroverted kind of person? Same question as I asked with Sam.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I am completely different now than I was in high school.
Hmm.
I had a really hard time in high school. I just did it. I was pretty introverted, and I'm not now at all. I mean, for
No.
the no. For the last
I
30
like that
years or so,
denial.
I've just
Very strong denial.
no,
You'll get in your face.
no,
Let's put it that way.
I'm not an introvert at all now. But when I was growing up, especially in high school, I too had lots of bullying issues for my weight. Because when
Yeah.
I was in high school, I was very overweight, and as I got to be an adult, I chose to be healthier, and I've lost most of it. So, but yeah, that was kind of me in high school. I was very I was very academic. I had a path that I knew that I wanted to go to college. I knew I wanted to get my master's degree, and I knew I wanted to be a teacher. So I had this very clear path for myself. But as far as socially, really until I met my husband and I met, he's older than I am. So I met him when I was 21, and I think he was maybe 30-ish.
But not too much older.
Not too much older, but that's kind of when I don't know, like my life kind of changed, and I just became much more confident and very outspoken, and just became very comfortable with myself. So high school was tough. High school was a hard time.
When you said you focused a lot on studying, were you the competitive type? And did that
No, I really
pass on to Sam by any chance when it comes to studying?
no.
Well, I can answer this one if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I can see it actually. I'm going to say yes and no.
Oh.
Yes, because I'm a hard worker,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't study the way you do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Okay.
She probably, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you probably stay with a piece of paper in your hand and like memorize it stuff. I don't do it that way. I study digitally. Like I'll play like matching games or like spelling tests, an example, like a practice thing, or like I'll do a word search to help me. I mean, maybe I'll play a vocab game, help me memorize some vocab words, flashcards, like visually.
Yes, Sam's a visual learner, very much a visual learner, and I tend to be more like word sentences. And as I get older, I'm more of an auditory learner. I can listen. I like to listen to podcasts and to books on tape and things like that. So that's kind of changed. But as far as being competitive, I wasn't competitive when I was in high school. I wasn't competitive against anybody but myself. I wanted to be better. I wanted to be better academically. So Sam, in my opinion, like watching him grow up, he's not competitive, but kind of the same thing. He tried when he was growing up, we put him in baseball and basketball and tried soccer and tried to get him involved. But as he grew up, we put him in karate, like martial arts, taekwondo, when he was 10, and he was in. He's almost a second-degree black belt in taekwondo.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
He did a really good. It's really cool, but he stuck with it for 5 years.
But I retired.
He retired.
Wow.
But what I noticed was karate is more like competing against himself. He wanted to make himself better. So, and then now with podcasting, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. He loves to be a podcaster, but then what I see him is like, okay, Mom, maybe we could try this. And he's upping the ante. Like he's just upping how much he wants.
And you're giving me suggestions that I sometimes will not take.
Yeah,
will or will.
Yeah. And he's very confident too. He's for somebody to have autism, that could really, in the world that we live in, that could really like bring him down. He does he does not let it bring him down. And
because I made a determination to change during freshman year. I mean, I made that determination. If I wasn't, then I don't know. I would something that.
Well, we've never taught him to be. We've always taught him that yes, we recognize that you have autism, and we're gonna like put services in place for you, and we're going to give you all of the resources that you need, but you can never use that as an excuse.
I did a couple times.
So I'm just saying that we never allowed it. And so I think he just kind of grew up thinking, well, yeah, I have autism, but they still expect me to get good grades, and I still have to take the trash out, and I still have to do my laundry. I mean, that still has to be done. So we always treated it like that. And I think as he grew up, like he said, he made the decision that this is my life. I mean, I get one chance, and he's not gonna mope because he has autism. Lots of people have autism. And so he just has to still function and we have very high expectations for him.
You do have well, not like high expectations. I mean, you're not strict, though, I guess is the way to put it.
No, but I expect you to go out into the world and will you have ups and downs in the world because you have autism? Absolutely. But you still have to do it.
I get that part. I'm just saying, I don't want people to think like you mean like you're strict on me or something like that.
I'm not strict, but he knows what I expect of him. My husband and myself, we're both very hard workers, and
I think that's grown.
Sam has to be too. So
I enjoy hard working, so it's probably a big trait of mine in life.
Absolutely.
That's cool. If you could take us back to the history of how Sam was diagnosed, is there a particular story on how Sam was diagnosed for autism? By any chance, is there a story, a history?
Yeah, absolutely. And he always wants me to tell this because he's always like, I was too little, I don't remember. So, but when he was born, my pregnancy was very, very normal. And when he was born, the only thing that was a little abnormal was, my pregnancy, I guess, I had lots of sickness, which is pretty common. And then when he was born, he just was never comfortable. His stomach hurt a lot, and he cried and cried and cried and cried for months. And then that kind of got better. But then we noticed that he was not hitting his milestones. He wasn't crawling when he should. He wasn't walking. He did, but it was late. And then when he was 2 years old, like in the States and probably everywhere, there's like an expectation. Okay, like when they're 2, they should be saying this many words. Sam was only saying 10 words. Like he wasn't saying near as much as he should. So I remember during speech, we put him with a speech therapist just to help him talk sooner. And I will never forget, she was a really nice lady, very knowledgeable. But I remember she was at our house because she would come to our house and give him, speech therapy and the services. And I remember she looked at me and she said, there is something with him. And I don't know what it is, but it's something. And so that was the first flag, like red flag, where I thought there is something else going on besides him being delayed in speech. So as he got older, when he was 2 and 3 years old, we started seeing like more behaviors. He hated loud noises, not even loud noises, like spontaneous noises.
I got an example for that.
He would just like fireworks, like buzzers. I just couldn't take him. We kind of went through a phase in his life when he was probably between 6 or 7. I really couldn't take him anywhere in public, because I didn't know if we were at a restaurant, if we were in the grocery store, like something was gonna trigger a meltdown.
Yeah, and I have an example for that. Well, I own like an old video game, and it's old, so it's making like this weird robot noise, and I have to play the game mute. Like I can't hear it. It's like, nope. All right, we're gonna mute this because I'm not dealing with the noise. So I just play the video game like fully mute.
Yeah. Yeah. To this day, there are still sounds that. But when he was like growing up, I was a teacher at the time, and I remember I had a couple of kids in my class that was on the autism spectrum, and I just kept thinking, well, maybe he has autism, but we didn't know. So we put him in a preschool, and it was a special needs preschool when he was 3, 4, and I think we even kept him there an extra year. But the teacher there was really good, and he knew within a week that Sam was probably on the autism spectrum. And then we went through the formal diagnosis through a behavior psychologist at his school. And they did all of the evaluations and monitored him for like a month in the classroom. And it was very clear that he was somewhere on the spectrum. And then as he got older, we realized he has what's called Asperger's disorder. And I don't even like to call it disorder because I don't believe that it's a disorder. But he has Asperger's, and that's just almost the highest, well, it is the highest form of like functioning autism that you can have. But he has had minor struggles and he has had major struggles, but we got through them. And, I just kind of like to step back and look at it sometimes.
The truth is I still work on it.
Oh, absolutely. Like autism, just because they hit like 18 doesn't mean autism goes away.
James Dermott once said this, and he said this when I interviewed him, or big American Idol dude. He said, work in progress, or always a work in progress.
But I think we're all a work in progress. I don't feel like, I don't want any of the listeners to think that I don't recognize that my son has autism, because I do. But on the flip side of that, I feel that we all have challenges, and autism happens to be one of Sam's challenges. It is a piece of him. Sam gets to choose where do you want autism represented in your life. Do you want to put it first? Do you want to educate people about it? That's fine. If you don't, that's not all you are. He's also, other things. So when people start saying, oh, he's autistic. Okay, but what do you have? What do you struggle with every day?
Math.
Nobody struggles with nothing. Then if you don't, you're not human. Yeah. I mean, I just always think that, like, I'm a work in progress. I'm a major work in progress. And so Sam, and so are you probably. Yeah. And so I just don't think that he's any different really than anybody.
Wow. You've already covered a lot of the topics that I was about to tackle.
Sorry.
But yeah. And but there's one question that I want to ask Sam. And the
Sure.
question is that I know you mentioned that it's always a constant it's always a constant struggle, and you've also mentioned a work in progress. Every day when you wake up, Sam, and you tackle the day, what is the first? Do you have a quotation or a mantra or something that would remind you things are gonna be all right? Something like that. Do you have that kind of quotation when you start the day?
Well,
he's got several.
I got several quotes, but this is my big one. I don't know if this will count as to answer your question, but this might be something. It's so simple yet so complicated.
You want to explain what that means? What's that mean? It's so simple yet so complicated. What's that mean to you?
To me, it means something as simple as doing something as simple to such as laundry that you will take for granted is not that easy to me, or the other way around.
So, like, being his mother and like watching him, that fits him so well. It's so simple yet so complicated. Things that are very simple to someone that's non-autistic, things are simple, like laundry, driving. We learn to drive. But for someone who's on the autism spectrum, things that are simple, they look at the world differently. So laundry and driving, things with a lot of steps to them, may not be as easy to him. But then he can come downstairs into his studio, and he's a genius on the Rodecaster and the podcast.
Or look what I just wrote.
And creative writing. So I can't do that unless I'm taught. Like, he did get a little bit of training on podcasting through his mentor, which really got him interested in it. But lots of what Sam does is self-taught. Yeah. Or my determination or my motivation. Absolutely. Because I say, like, this well. Like, so I say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I mean, sometimes it's stupid, granted, but no matter what you say, I'm going to do it. You're very determined, yeah. Yeah, like, wow. Like my dad. And your mom.
No, more like my dad with that trait.
Wow. More power to you, Sam and Gina, for the love and this thing. I feel like I'm actually the third wheel in my show. Just so you know.
Sorry.
No, but I love
We're
it.
talkers.
I love the energy, I love the vibe, and I love the conversation. And yeah, you dug deep into philosophy and the fact that yeah, for those who are listening, I'm sure they want to be educated to what autism is. Could you give a brief summary? Anyone could give a brief summary of what autism is.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So, autism to me, it is a neurodevelopmental disorder that makes you struggle with certain things, and with certain cues, with certain like social behaviors, with certain society. I mean, not with like society in general, but like with like some parts of some society, with maybe making decisions, being blunt. That's my thing. I do is I'm too blunt with you. Like, now I'm not saying now, but something stupid I'm going to tell you. I don't do daily changes. Like a minor change sometimes still to this day throws me off when we're onto something. I got a story for that one, actually.
It's a pretty good story.
So I was going to my life coach appointment. I have a life coach. And unfortunately, I was driving my truck. Well, was it you or me who spilled it?
I spilled it.
Someone over here to my left spilled Dr. Pepper.
Oh.
And what you guys would probably do is be like, oh, no big deal, clean it up, go to the appointment. No, that's not me. I'm like, okay, we had somewhere to be. Let's save this for later. Then let's go to our appointment. Then we can worry about this cleanup later.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is a lot of what, I knew a little bit about autism when he was diagnosed because I had kids in class, but I just knew the basics. So, of course, through the years, I'm by no means an expert on it, but I've definitely, my husband and I both have educated ourselves, like, what is this and how can we help Sam? But it is, like he said, to me, it's brain wiring. His brain is wired a certain way, which is a diagnosis of autism. And there are behaviors. What I've noticed a lot is, socially. I mean, he can sit down and do an interview like this, and he's wonderful at it. Like he can express himself so well.
Oh yeah.
But then you put him in like a group of 8 people that are having a conversation, and if they're not talking about something that he's really not interested in, he has a really hard time coming into the conversation and then leaving the conversation. For someone who's non-autistic, that does not typically have to be taught. That is a matter of observation, and you can figure that out.
Yeah.
But somebody with autism socially has to be taught. This is how you do this, which is not a bad thing. It's just the way that it is. There's lots of sensory issues with autism. It's like, if you walk into a gymnasium full of people and there's lots of noise going on, and then the buzzer goes off spontaneously, like that, for a typical person, that would bug them, that would bother them, kinda, but you would just kind of move on. But somebody with autism, it's like that noise times 1,000. Like that's what he hears whenever he hears
amplifies. It amplifies the sound.
Absolutely.
And here's another story to prove that. I went to a wrestling show, and the first time this happened, like I still have traumatized this from this, FYI. You remember when Kane's pyro went off?
Yeah, I do.
Kane's pyro, it's like, it shoots like fire out, and it's like a big boom noise.
Yeah.
And when that boom went off,
and
I was like, okay, no.
You didn't like that.
No.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it's loud, but not expected to be like 20,000 times loud.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different, like it's not just like a generalization. Like in his brain, it really does sound like that to him, as far as like sensory stuff. So he talked about changes. He's better as he's gotten older, but when he was younger, we could not change anything. um, we would, we would wake up every morning and immediately he would say, "What are we doing today?" And I would have to give him the rundown of this is the agenda for the day. And then after school, if I changed anything up, he couldn't do it. It was a meltdown and
Or a refusal to put my foot down.
yeah. So those were some hard years. Those were some tough years trying to figure things out. And I've told people before, each like when he was 6, there were like obstacles. Then when he became a teenager, obstacles. Then when he turned 16 with driving, and now that he's 18, he's an adult. So it's not bad things, but the obstacles change as he gets older
And
with age group.
I thought of another issue, if you don't mind to mention.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Thank you. One of my issues is it's not as bad now, but let's put it, the way to put it is I'm very opinionated. Like I'm trying to think of remember the Cats versus Dogs episode? Like I'm very closed-minded. I'm like, no, I'm dealing with this. You don't like it, that's too bad.
Yeah, and that can get, that is really how his brain works, is he's very black and white. Like it's either going to be this or it's this. And sometimes it's doable, like we can work around it, but then sometimes as his mom, and raising him, I'm like, no, Sam, this is what you're thinking, and I'm sorry, but it can't be that way. And so there are some things like he wants that sometimes haven't been realistic, and we've had to help him understand, like, you have to move on now. The answer is no, and it's not going to happen, and let's try to figure out a different solution. So
and I'm thinking out loud, one of them happened today, sort of.
What?
Well, I'll explain. So I'm not like picky with ice cream or anything, but it's kind of funny, but it fits. Well, I asked my mom, because I don't want to go to town with her. I was like, hey, can you do me a favor and drop by the store and give me some Bluebell, pick between these two flavors?
Ice cream,
No, not that. Well, a typical kid be like, no, you know what? You text me well, they don't have those two.
Yeah.
A typical kid be like, just give me a different flavor. Give me this instead.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, no, get me those two or just screw it.
I wonder if you're a little bit spoiled.
No, that's closed-minded. That is closed-minded right there. I've always been like that. I just don't want, because I just don't want any flavors. I'm dead set. Give me those two flavors, or just don't give me anything at all. I don't care. I'm not gonna cry over ice cream. Or
is that the
anything.
definition of spoiled?
That's the definition. Spoiled is getting what you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting what I want would be something like.
I'm teasing you.
Of course you are.
That's interesting. You opened up a lot of boxes. I do agree. I do understand the pain, but at least there were remedies, and towards the progress. At least as the years go by, there were progress, and it's like the analogy of the game when you mentioned you play games and you play it on mute. You notice that if you play the game, it gets harder in the beginning, and then it gets easier over time, and then as you level up, it gets tougher and tougher. And I think that's actually, I guess in life that's actually the general rule, but I think it's doubled. The way I perceived how you guys told me the story is that's how I saw it. It's double the toughness, but still the fact that you're still strong and you're still fighting, and more power to you. We're gonna have a short break, but after our short break, we're gonna have an interesting topic about something that I've always wanted to discuss with Sam. This is probably going to be a one-on-one with Sam, but before that, we're gonna have a short few messages, folks. If you want a great vacation place this summer, we got a sweet deal for you. La Casa Vacance in Batangas is a great place for your family to relax and enjoy. Go to pipenetwork.co/La Casa Vacance to use the promo code PRS to get 300 pesos per booking And don't forget to follow national safety protocols, folks. Cheers and enjoy your stay.
If you want to learn something new or useless about the world around you, why don't you try listening to the Banyu Podcast Reflushed on Spotify, Anchor, or any podcast app that you use?
Hey, folks, welcome back to the Rajiv Show. And I'm here with my guests, Gina and Sam Mitchell, all the way from Indiana. And we spoke about, of course, autism and the motivation and how to deal with life through challenges. And we're just gonna kick this up a notch because Sam and I share a common interest, and of course, this is WWE. And Sam knows this conversation is gonna say this is gonna happen because I came across this documentary called The Last Ride, which is of course the Undertaker, the dead man, the iconic legend, and his life. I gotta ask Sam. Sam, what are your thoughts when you saw the entire thing? What was going through your mind when you saw behind the scenes during the life of Undertaker's last few days?
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, I own the network, so that's where it all began. But my dad is also a fan of The Undertaker, and we were both really, that's cool. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Anyway, we were really interested in seeing what Undertaker's like, because you don't see Undertaker much. I mean, all the time he's like, rest in peace, go down hell. I mean, that's what you basically see. But you don't see the man behind it. That's interesting to me is you don't see the man behind it. I mean, that's why I think school is difficult in a little way, actually, because sure, you see a different side of me, but you don't see who the real person is.
Yeah.
That's a struggle with it. But that's what I thought. It kind of resembles that. But I thought it was really good and really interesting. And we can definitely say Undertaker is a very conservative, serious person.
And you mentioned earlier on that you got to witness Kane. That is one thing that first of all, I was shocked when you witnessed Kane, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I've seen it only on a flat screen TV or the old school TV. I mean, wow, that experience must have been exciting. Were you guys in the front row when you guys saw that? the fight, the match?
Well, we were like 2 or 3 seats close to the middle. I mean, to the front. We were like where the security guard is, basically.
Wow, that means you got to reach out and shake hands with the entrance when everybody's coming in.
I didn't shake their hand. That's the security guard wouldn't let me probably.
Yeah.
but I do have another story.
Yeah.
I got to meet my favorite pro wrestler. So I did get to do that.
Who may I know who this is?
You might, Mick Foley.
Oh my, that legend. That's another legend. I mean, yeah.
Yep. I got to meet him and literally shake his hand, actually.
How is he in person? That's the first thing that hit me in the head. How is he in person?
Very, very humble, first of all.
Yeah.
Very, very big, unlike TV. He looks like a gremlin on TV.
Yeah.
Hairy. A little hairy guy.
Yeah.
But he's also really humble. And but what's interesting is I read online not right after I met him, but a while back ago, is he raises a son who has autism. So if I knew that, I would have talked to him about that too.
Oh, you might.
Can I really fast
sure.
with Sam's show? We have tried to contact Mick Foley 2 or 3 times because Sam really wants to get him on his show, but he's not responded. So anytime Mick Foley's name comes up, I'm like, okay, Mick Foley, if you're listening to this, please call us so that Sam can invite him on his show.
That'd be interesting, Mick Foley listening to the Rajiv show. That'd be interesting too.
Yeah. So let's hope that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And is it true that because I was watching, I don't remember how long it's been since I saw a Mick Foley documentary. I think it was I was checking it out on YouTube. There was I don't know if you know the story though about Mick Foley. There was one of these matches that he had. Of course, you know Mick Foley is an extreme during the 90s, I think, or yeah, during the 90s. he- the fights that they used to have, they were no holds bar. You know, they'd break
Are you talking about Hell in a Cell?
ECW era. I think that was during the ECW era with the barbed wires and you know, all the crazy stuff. There, there was
Okay,
an
yeah,
uh, there
I
was a
haven't seen
story.
CW much.
Yeah, uh, there was this story, and I'm not sure if you know this. There was this story that during one of the matches, there was a glitch that wasn't supposed to happen, and during that glitch, Mick Foley I think fell backwards, and I think the rope, the ring ropes caught his ear, and I think it pulled half. I don't know if if you know the story, but this was actually an interesting story that I don't know
Oh, that
which
story.
ear.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I know
and
what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, that was during I think the ECW era when they used to fight extreme and stuff like that. And I think he was under the alter ego Terry Funk, I think. Because when he went to WWE, I think he started off as Mankind, and then he had like three personas. And yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I think it was Terry Funk or the other guy. Yeah, there were so many guys. It was kind of weird, yeah, for me to remember that. But yeah, there was an era where he had this alternate persona, and yeah, that incident was so bad, and I think his ear was bleeding. But the guy was really, I mean, intense. I think even
Yeah.
during the Undertaker, yeah. Now we transitioned from Mankind. Now we're gonna go back to the Undertaker stuff. During the earlier years, their fights used to be brutal. I think the most iconic fight that I know of that still resonates in my mind is the fight, the Hell in a Cell match that Mick Foley and Undertaker had.
Yeah, they got threw off. I mean, that killed him.
Yeah, the funny thing about that was the first part was they that I think that was the first. I don't know if that was the first Hell in a Cell match, but oh no, that was the second, because I think the first one was when Undertaker went against Shawn Michaels, and then Kane came into the picture. But
Yep.
during that first
Yep.
match, I
Exactly.
think the first match with Mankind and Undertaker, um, yeah, that was the first match they started on top of the ring, because I think during the entrance they were supposed to get inside, and Mick Foley was coming in from the entrance, and he threw a steel chair on top, and then of course Undertaker came in, and then you know they started there, and then he flipped him off. Yeah, that's the iconic part was he threw him off the cell, and I think the cell, from where I was watching it from, of course the television, was much higher. I don't know if the Hell in a Cell nowadays is even higher than it was before, but that distance was so bad that even if I was thrown off that distance, I would have been broken into pieces. You'd be saying hi to Rajiv 1 and Rajiv 2 in the hospital, you know. But yeah,
Yeah, that's my favorite rivalry. But
yeah,
that's not my favorite match, actually. Believe it or not, that's my dad's favorite, but it ain't my favorite.
yeah.
My
Uh,
favorite match they had was they had one in Indy. This was before I was born. It was In Your
hmm.
House Buried Alive, and it was a buried alive match.
With the Undertaker, it was the same Undertaker.
Yeah, same Undertaker and same Mankind. They had a buried alive match.
I thought in your house they had the boiler room match, or that was
That
something
was
else.
SummerSlam.
Ah, SummerSlam.
That was
Okay.
SummerSlam.
Yeah, I think I'm getting old now with my Undertaker references. But yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool era. I mean, yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah, now coming back to the Undertaker, what are your thoughts with the latest few matches? I'm sure you subscribed to the previous matches that he had. Of course, I think the latest one. was, I think, WrestleMania 30 when Brock Lesnar beat the streak, but he still kept coming back. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on his condition and how he sing? What are your thoughts on that?
To me, to me, Undertaker, it depends on what era you're talking about. Undertaker from 2017 was awful, as we all know. But I think Undertaker, the time when he went out, he should have went out by WrestleMania 36, and it was time. But he went out in a good way, and it was the first new character, is what I like. You combine the Death Undertaker, the American Badass Undertaker, and then a little bit of him in there. To me, that adds a good new character, a weird but cool character. Because when I first saw it, I thought, what's going on? Because he walked down fast on Raw, and I was like, he doesn't do this typically. But then he did. I thought, okay, we got somewhere going. Maybe we can use this.
It's pretty cool, though. Yeah. The one thing that I really, my opinion, opinion stuff that I kind of saw was the Goldberg versus Undertaker, the duel match. That was kind of like 20 years or 10 years too late, because the energy, the vibe, and I think I kind of felt when I was watching the match, I was watching the highlight on YouTube, the jackhammer portion that nearly actually killed Undertaker. I'm sure you saw that and you felt, oh, that was bad for
it was 2 inches from concussion.
Yeah.
At his age, you can't get a concussion.
Yeah. I think that was very scary. I mean, the funny thing was, after that match, he said that the doctor said that he was 2 inch close to death. And that was really scary. But I think the one takeaway here that's connected to motivation is the fact that for 30 years, Undertaker really did hard work. And I hope my listeners, would see that as a source of inspiration. And I look at that and I say, wow, 30 years.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this too, but this is what amazes me too. When they were having the Monday Night Wars with WWE and WCW, at the time where a lot of WWE guys were transferring to WCW.
True.
Not Undertaker. He's stuck there.
Yeah.
That's another motivation for you, bud. He's stuck there because he loved that business. He didn't want for money. He just loved wrestling and loved that brand. So he could have been motivated by staying there, not motivated by the money.
Yeah. And I think that was the era during that time. It was I think it was a transitional era, because majority of the old folks from the era where Undertaker started, those were the guys who started moving towards WCW. We got Lex Luger and Bret Hitman. And that was during the era where the Undertaker, the dead man persona, the first era where, he had Paul Bearer as his, and, he had the weird thing. And then, of course, but during that time, he transitioned into different characters. He had the whole satanic imagery thing. And then...
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite.
Ministry of Darkness.
Ministry of Darkness, yeah. That's also my favorite.
It's so scary.
Yeah.
Yet so cool. Like, I want to be a part of the Ministry of Darkness. Like, that says something about it. If I'm a part of the faction, that's a good faction. Like, I want to be part of the Ministry of Darkness.
They kind of killed it, though. That they kind of killed it when they engulfed the whole. They mixed it up with the whole corporate ministry. It kind of desaturated the mysticism of that thing. I just realized our conversation became a wrestling podcast instead of a motivation. But still, we're still.
Oh yeah, I was just saying the Ministry of Darkness. I wish they could still be here like today, and like, I think today they would do something good too.
Yeah.
I think it'd still like be a good thing today.
The scariest part of the scariest part was the most controversial one that I remember was when they hanged the boss man in WrestleMania 9. 29 or something. 20. That was
15.
Yeah, but man, that was the first time. That was really something else. I mean, during the era itself,
Yeah.
the Monday Night Wars, it was unpredictable compared to how it is now with, of course, the steel chair shots and the concussions and and the regulation, the health. That's thing. That's really. I
There,
mean, yeah, it's more PG now than it was back then. There was no regards for
yeah.
who's bleeding, but as long as someone is bleeding and someone's paying, that's the thing. And yeah,
All right. Yeah, and but to be honest with you, there are some still real stories. If you ever watch wrestling's Dark Side of the Ring, there's some real stories that happened
hmm,
that wasn't fake, that were real.
yeah. I mean, aside from the Ministry of Darkness, I really wanna, in this entire conversation, I really wanna engulf this whole conversation into Undertaker. I feel bad though that we left out our guest Gina in this whole conversation. We started talking about wrestling.
You want to talk about wrestling a little bit?
Well, as long as he has liked wrestling, I'm sure that I can't participate in it like you guys can, but I could probably hold my own a little bit.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what your favorite wrestlers?
My favorite wrestler?
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He's my favorite.
Yeah, but he kind of retired too soon. But still, he's actually active in the community. That's one thing about him. He's still doing his job as a thing, as an analyst, and I think he also recently released some podcasts. I think he has a podcast and all.
Yeah, the Broken Skull.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's
he has some like TV, and I also
Yeah.
like who is it?
The Rock,
Well, I like him.
John
But-
Cena.
Well, yeah, John. The reason I like John Cena is he does lots of charity work as well. He does.
That's where we part ways.
Make a Wish and all that.
Well,
stuff.
I just. Yes, I love that where these kids like reach out to him, and that's like their one wish, and I really respect.
I can't. I don't like John.
Yeah, you don't really.
Well,
but I just.
here's the reason. He's great with the community, and I respect that. You know
Okay.
how much I respect. Like, I respect him a lot for that.
Right.
But when he
Yeah.
gets in that ring, he sucks. Like, he changes his moves all the time.
You don't really like
Yeah.
him as a wrestler.
He can't do a move. He always has to change his moves. It's like pick a set of moves and go with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see.
Well.
Yeah. Now, when I was growing up, my brother and I watched wrestling a lot when I was growing up, and I was always a really big fan of the Ultimate Warrior. Was my favorite
Ooh.
growing up.
That was the Hulkamania era.
Uh-huh.
That was the end when Austin Warrior beat him at WrestleMania 6. That was the end of Hulkamania.
Yeah.
What happened? What was the story there?
Okay, gotcha. So WrestleMania 6 was basically champion versus champion. And Hulk Hogan was putting his wrestling belt, his world heavyweight one, on the line. Ultimate Warrior put his intercontinental belt. However, what you notice is, at the time, I didn't like Hulk Hogan as the good guy, but I'll get into the reason why. But when Ultimate Warrior beat him, Hulk Hogan still kept participating. But the more he got there, he was just getting old and stuff. So he changed to WCW. Well, what happened was, each time they kept going out, I guess his character's getting stale, and they kept booing him.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta get what you want. So he's trying ways to revamp his career. He thought, someone said, I can't remember who, but what if I turn bad? He's like, ooh, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
And then to me, the better Hulk Hogan, when he dropped that leg on Randy Savage, was awesome, because that Hulk Hogan is the best version than this good, clean-cut babyface Hulk Hogan. This villainous, mean, rude, snobby Hulk Hogan, who you can't help to love. This rock star Hogan, you just can't help to love, is the best.
Wait, are we talking about NWO? Hulk Hogan?
Yep. Yep, the NWO Hulk Hogan, that's the best Hulk Hogan, period.
Yeah. This is interesting.
This other clean-cut Hulk Hogan, nasty.
But what was the golden era of Hulk Hogan? I'm sure that was when he body slammed Andre the Giant.
Yep. That was
was the
when
golden.
you were like, say your prayers, train your vitamins,
Yeah.
and
And then, of course,
that was
Stone Cold came into the picture.
yeah, he did.
And
That's
then he changed.
swear how
Yeah.
he came in the picture was at King of the Ring. There was a big old tournament. Then he won and beat him. He basically like gave us huge promo, and then people started loving him.
Yeah. And then, of course, I think during his era, there's a lot of guys who flourished. We had The Rock, who started as a baby face and then became the greatest heel. And then Undertaker, of course, he was consistent. He was, I think, Lord of Darkness, and then Ministry of Darkness, and then American Badass.
And then we got Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, yeah, Shawn Michaels, the D Generation X. Oh man, that brought me back memories of my first guest from the Let's Talk series, Amarnath. We used to go crazy during the lost years when Amarnath used to visit my place. We used to imitate D Generation X. I used to download all the entrance music, and then at home we had a very wide space, so we used to imitate the entrance, and we used to literally wrestle like, man.
I did that a lot too
fun.
when I was younger.
Yeah, at that time it was either you were wrestling your pillow or you were wrestling someone, and it was tough. we used to get so beaten up. It was like, we lifted like a lot. It was more like it was more like a workout. And then
It was.
but it was fun.
That's what I see about Taekwondo and wrestling, because Mr. Bosix wants to this WWE. It's always about slamming them, like boom, slamming them.
Yeah.
To me, what I like about karate, and I always say this: if I was a wrestler, I would be what they call a striker or an attacker, because karate made me learn the front kicks, round kicks, side kicks, and attacks. I would want to, if I was a wrestler, I would want to utilize those into the business. So it's always funny because sometimes they always throw a super kick, and that's like a side kick basically in Taekwondo. So when I throw, oh my god, I know that move really well. That's what they call a side kick in Taekwondo, but I could throw a good super kick too.
But I think one thing that I've learned that Undertaker and all these other wrestlers did is they really they sold their thing, the artistry of it. I don't know, I kind of dived into the artistry also of Sing. And the reason why I wanted to open the conversation into arts is there's something about wrestling that's that has to do with the art of it. I mean, it's aside from the storytelling, which is of course phenomenal, especially when Shawn Michaels. To me, Shawn Michaels is the best that sold the story more over, especially when his feud with Undertaker. He sold the stuff when he got frustrated and stuff like that. Deep down, of course, those were only characters. But then the way he sold it, his frustration, how he took the Undertaker out during the Elimination Chamber. He came out of the Elimination Chamber during the World Heavyweight. And then I think Chris Jericho was the last who was left. And and the artistry is really phenomenal. It's interesting stuff.
It's like your greatest superheroes or your greatest supervillains, or like your characters who you want to be come to life.
Yeah. And it's like a painting. I mean, looking at it, at first, when they say they practice the flips and the falls, it's kind of, as a spectator, it's kind of weird. I mean, imagine falling 5, 6, 7, 10 times, and they had to practice that. I'm sure you've heard the saying that they practice that fall 5 to 6, 7 times. And then during the match, they expect it to be perfect. It's like, if I fall one time and then I fall in the stairs, I'm not planning to fall 10 times in the same stairs. That's kind of scary. That's the thing, and it's crazy. It's crazy, but that's that life is an interesting life. From the spectator's point of view, that's just phenomenal. More respects to Sing. We basically covered wrestling, autism, and of course, amazing conversation. To wrap this conversation, hopefully, my listeners heard a lot. I mean, picked up a lot. Before we end the
Yeah.
conversation, um, if my listeners want to connect with you via social media, how do they find you on social media?
Sure. So they can find me on Facebook, Autism Sam Stories. They can go to my website, autismrocksrolls.com, or to check out my podcast, they can go on Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and LinkedIn.
Awesome, awesome. Um, I want to say thank you to my guests. Thank you. We've opened a lot of boxes, and thank you also for educating us about autism. I want to thank my guests, Sam and Gina Mitchell.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. We
Yeah.
really, really always just really appreciate the opportunity to, I'm so proud of my son. I'm so proud of Sam. Just to watch him grow, and he's overcome so many obstacles, like we all of us really have. And I'm just so excited to see what his future holds. And I'm just always say that is how much I love him and
I
how proud of him I am.
Oh yeah, before I forget, folks, if you are tuning in, um, I must say I'm gonna promote this in advance because the release of this episode is gonna be somewhere 2021. Sam has his own TEDx uh, presentation, and as a friend, I am so proud to promote this on behalf of Sam. You guys gotta check it out. Hopefully, by the release of this episode, it'll be all. Hopefully, it'll be around in YouTube already. It's a TEDx conversation, and it's a TEDx presentation. And check it out. You guys gotta check it out. Sam is an amazing person, and as a friend, I am so proud. I am so proud to have this conversation, this collaboration. Hopefully, somewhere down the line, we'd talk more about wrestling, and we're gonna open up a lot of conversations. And hopefully, that will happen soon. I want to thank my guest again. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. And I hope to see you guys soon again, probably in the coming seasons and coming episodes. And for those who are listening, I hope you learned a thing or two from this conversation. Cheers, folks, and stay safe.